Hello Canada, welcome back to another edition of the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, alias Guy. So, we just had the whole beginning of the stampede, and mainstream's doing what they're paid to do. Hide the reality of what's going on. We're gonna just kind of expose the reality of Trudeau 2.0, which is Mark Carney. How the media is kind of portraying this, of course, trying to, elbows up, and it's not working, especially in Western Canada. We're also going to get into a couple little bombshells that have dropped out here, like a CBC employee that has just up and quit because of, well, not only the lack of diversity, but their one-way look and take on what they like to promote to Canada as opposed to the reality. We're going to dive into another report that came out about how months before the whole elbows up, the Liberals were actually running polls and internal reviewing to try and find the best way to use the propaganda machine and this anti-Trump rhetoric in order to win the election. Yeah. Then we're going to dive into Pierre Poilievre and this amazing speech that he gave in Calgary and the trade agreement that was just signed with Alberta and Ontario. And then depending on how much time we have, I'm going to try and squeeze in a few more little things. Let's just get started with Propaganda 101.
With me now is Scott Reed, CTV News political commentator. Hi, Scott. Good to see you.
Hi, Renee.
So talk to us about the significance of Mark Carney's presence at the Stampede this year, especially given the fact that former Prime Minister Trudeau did not attend last year.
Yeah, well, the political heat was such last summer that, he just didn't want to be there. Trudeau would have drawn a lot of boos and jeers, and I think he probably wisely decided that it was best just not to poke his head above the parapet. Carney's, obviously just coming off an election win, and a lot of Albertans are excited about his policy agenda, or at least they're less suspicious of his policy agenda. Let's put it that way. So, you can see he could actually walk around relatively unattended for an hour in the crowd and, take pictures with people and make small talk. So definitely he feels a little more comfortable than Prime Minister Trudeau did at the end of his career there last year.
In what ways could this event shape perceptions of Carney when you consider his approach with the tariffs and also considering the panels held for Alberta to separate?
It's important not to overstate, but by the same token, because it's just a fun event and, it's on the political calendar of politicians, municipally, provincially, federally, and you want to be there and be seen to be there at the breakfasts and at the barbecues and so forth. But you're right, it's happening in a context. You have the Premier of Alberta rolling out these consultations on a potential referendum and, trying to take back, as she claims, a bunch of provincial authorities from federal encroachment. So there's tension there. On the other hand, the Carney government is pursuing a broad agenda that seems to be getting some, at least, qualified approval from those in the energy patch. So I think they're looking at his government as a genuine change from Mr. Trudeau's. And, I can tell you as a guy who used to work for a prime minister, this is always a white-knuckle event when you're bringing a politician from Eastern Canada there. Do you wear a belt buckle? Do you wear boots? Do you look like a fool, or can you pull it off? Do you flip the pancake? It may sound like small things, but these are perilous political challenges.
You said the word tension. How might Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre's simultaneous Stampede presence affect Carney's visit?
Well, it probably won't affect it much, but it will be a contrast in styles. Mark Carney's riding high politically, but Pierre Poilievre will be on home turf, not all the more so since he's actually running in Alberta in a by-election. So expect that, his events will be massive expressions of political support. He'll have, hundreds of cheering supporters and so on and so forth. Whereas I think wisely, you saw Carney didn't try to match that. He didn't try to do a big stated event. He will be doing the morning flapjack stuff, but just wandering through the crowd, I think, to kind of take some of the tension, take some of the contrast out of that picture. So you just see him high-fiving with people and shaking hands, as opposed to trying to match body count for body count in effectively what become political rallies.
I was watching Carney do the pancake flips there. It always has struck me, why don't they practice more before flipping pancakes in front of the entire country? I feel like if I were prime minister, I would. Do they?
Oh, yeah. They do, and they stand in front of the mirror and they tilt the hat and they go, "Do I look like a dork? Can I pull this off?" Some of them can. I can tell you with Prime Minister Martin, it was a whole production, no question about it.
Oh, I could see why. I think you can tell a lot about a pancake flip. But Scott, we'll have to end it there. That is our time.
Right. Okay. First of all, they label him as a conservative. You ask any conservative, and they mock Reid. The guy is an absolute full-fledged liberal. Even more so than Dougie. At least Dougie has a small c somewhere buried on him. But Scott Reid is a full-fledged 100% lefty. So the fact that they're already labeling this as a conservative is a joke. Now, let's get to the reality of what happened. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of these that are floating around. So you're probably seeing this, and if for those viewers who haven't, you're going to love this, because we're just going to show you the reality of, well, what they just said. If this is such a big event, you would have thought there would have been some practice or concern. But you can see people who actually flip their own pancakes at home, as opposed to those who have probably never served themselves a meal in their entire life, let alone cooked for their own kids. Let's just kind of dive into first what really happened. What really happened in Calgary with Carney.
Please welcome the Right Honorable.
This is approximately over 17,000 people in Calgary introducing Mark Carney.
Mark Carney, Prime Minister of Canada.
Oh my God, everyone's booing.
You would think media would do its job, because all of Canada needs to see this. They need to see not only how this man is despised out west, but this also will explain a lot to those out east just how much sentiment there is growing in favor of separation. But no, that's not what propaganda does. They're trying to elbows up and keep Carney on this fake pedestal, which, looking at some of the polls, it looks like the honeymoon's already over. Now, we're just going to go to the pancake flipping skills. Right.
And have you heard of the? See, I'm here. I'm more in management. You can pancake. You got what's all this? Cheers. I got a special. Oh my God, your grill is hot. Yes. Oh, there you go. Yes, you can flip that one. I know. Oh, there you go. That's not it. That's not. I was better in Ottawa. There you go. I'm gonna do another one. I'm gonna do another one. I'm practicing. I got a little cocky there. But I was here. No, I'll take responsibility. Okay. I can have that one. These are mine. Okay, all right. I'm not making anyone eat these. Where you put them in here? You put them in my corner there. All right. The card. Now, Did you ever see when I was a kid, there's a show called The Galloping Gourmet. Yes. Yeah. Did anyone remember The Galloping Gourmet? Any of you guys? Yeah. He'd always be like, here's what I made earlier. So let's just ignore everything that happened. It's like, oh, look at this perfect pancake.
Looks pretty good.
We're going to go back in. Yeah, we're going to go back in. Some of the things you have to learn
Just a touch.
Have you done this before? I think you made them too big. That was the problem. I'm gonna do.
You gotta like let it sit for like.
I'm gonna do Cody Boy's size. So anyway, so he's got this
A minute and a half or something.
with
That's there we go. Hey.
Not bad. Aren't you good? Like 6 out of 10? 6 out of 10. It's all right. You gonna eat one of these? You ready? You play lacrosse? Good man. Good man. You play box lacrosse? That's a real sport. That's a real tough one. He was a goalie. That's very hot. Wasn't very good. I didn't like to.
You have to go find your GA.
Finally. Did you stop filming before that?
He's happy.
Anyway, so they got this fusion. We were talking about it in the Stampede. They want to build this center of fusion.
No,
of,
this is everything
all the university research.
You can tell a lot about a person, especially at functions like this. Now I know this is the whole. He's there just to be there, but the point of the matter is that, well, maybe not in his case. There's usually lineups of people, where, like I said, in his case, there wasn't. They pushed everybody around to make it look like it was kind of this packed area. But if you look carefully, there's void between his little wee group and everything else. He's holding up the food line. Your job is get in there, donate your time, and cook some darn pancakes. This is how our parliament is being treated in Canada right now. This literally is the epitome. Everything about what you're seeing here is the same Liberal Party of yesterday, just going on again now. So he's lollygagging, not doing anything. He's flapping at the mouth, obviously with not a lot of people interested in hearing what he has to say. Lord knows I'm not interested in what he has to say. He's literally starving the people. And if this is our energy projects, this is how he's dealing with them. He's doing a messy job of the crap that he's trying to roll out while people are waiting and starving. 25% of Canada at food banks. Parliament is shut down.
John Ag, coming in with the private sector as well, and then they have a Stampede exhibit on the saddle with the saddle. Yeah,
Do the cookies like, come on, man.
I'm all full.
Come on, get on that pancake.
There you go.
Oh, good.
There you go.
Ready,
Get off there
Andy?
before it burns.
Sous
That's
chef.
got a hot spot here.
Sous chef. Oh, you want me to flip it? You want the big Ottawa flip?
Right. Okay. Anyways. Now, let's move on to Daniel Smith. So, does this look familiar? Now, I'm going to have to mute this, obviously. I'm sorry, but yeah, this is just Trudeau 2.0. Nothing's changed, and you can keep moving. And this is Polyev. Now there were much better where he was out there and he's like doing this double flip thing, and But it's the amount of pancakes this guy is putting out as well. He had Jaresh Shahan and himself. The lineup went literally over a kilometer long. And people were moving. I'm talking, they weren't standing in line waiting. This guy is pushing out product. Quick photo op, and then move on. The lineup for his pancakes was absolutely insane. Insane. It just kept going and going and going and going and going. But like I said, he would do his quick photo op and then right back to getting the food out there. It's not just a photo op. He has a job to do while he's there. This tells you a lot about leadership. Nothing's changed. Now, this is a bit of a bombshell. So this former CBC host, blasts the state broadcaster on his way out the door. So Travis Danraj accuses CBC of bias, lack of diversity of opinion in a scathing resignation letter. So CBC loves diversity, just not diversity of opinion. That mistake has now cost them a former top host and perhaps created an enemy. In a scathing letter announcing his resignation, now former CBC's journalist and television host Travis Danraj is taking aim at Canada's state broadcaster. This is an involuntary resignation, Danraj said. I am stepping down not by choice, but because the Canadian Broadcast Corporation has made it impossible for me to continue my work with integrity. The 20-year broadcast veteran had worked for Bell Media Global and was recruited to CBC to report on Parliament Hill Marketplace, and then eventually was chosen to host as host of Canada Tonight with Travis Danraj. His show was announced with a great fanfare in November 2023, hit the airwaves in January 2024, and was done within a year. Travis's engaging curiosity and incredible range of experience allows him to translate complex stories into personal terms and help audiences make sense of the news, which will be key as Canada Tonight sharpens its focus on stories that matter at home and make a difference in this country, said CBC executive Andrew Lau in a statement at the time. Quickly, though, CBC realized that Danraj wasn't the kind of host CBC wanted. He actually welcomed a diversity of opinion. And while other shows like Power and Politics faced a boycott at the time by MPs from the federal Conservatives over their blatant pro-Trudeau liberal bias, those same Conservative MPs would speak to and appear on TV with Danraj, something CBC's top talent wouldn't allow and blocked from happening. Appearances by people like me, not normally welcomed at CBC headquarters, didn't go over well either. When I joined CBC, I did so with a clear understanding of its mandate and a belief in its importance to Canadian democracy. I was told I would be a bold voice in journalism. I took that role seriously. I worked to elevate unprecedented stories, expand political balance, and uphold the journalistic values Canadians expect from their public broadcaster, Danraj said in his resignation letter. But what happens behind the scenes at CBC too often contradicts what's shown to the public. Performative diversity tokenism, a system designed to elevate certain voices and diminish others. Danraj says he was denied access to key newsmakers and says a small circle of senior Ottawa-based journalists, read that as David Cochrane and Rosemary Barton, used internal booking and editorial processes to block him from booking key guests. I was fighting for balance and accused of being on a crusade, Danraj says. Those who know Danraj know that he is far from someone pushing a conservative agenda. During his time covering Queen's Park, he was a constant thorn in the side of Ontario Premier Doug Ford. As a show host, though, Danraj wanted to reflect the viewpoints of the whole country, Liberals, New Democrats, Conservatives, and people who didn't fit into neat, tidy boxes. That made CBC executives uncomfortable. They obviously thought when they hired a self-described brown dude from Calgary whose parents had immigrated to Canada from Trinidad that they were getting someone with a certain point of view. That's the kind of diversity CBC wants. The diversity that rests on the surface with skin color, not the diversity that allows others' views to be aired to CBC's audience. CBC executives fully immersed in the DEI culture didn't know how to handle the man that they had actually hired, and so they fought him the entire time he hosted the show. Shortly after the show launched, certain segments were cut, especially those showcasing diverse opinion. The interference from Ottawa only intensified. His decision to criticize CBC President Catherine Tate for defunding executive bonuses while cutting frontline jobs brought about retribution, including a demand that he sign a non-disclosure agreement. By November, Dhanraj was off the air, but his name was still on the show. CBC initially refused to comment. Then, in early 2025, they said they were going in a new direction with a new host, Ian Hannamansingh. After trying to demote Dhanraj, the journalist and state broadcaster were at a standstill. Now, he has made it clear that his relationship with CBC is over. My departure is not the end of the story. There is more to come, and it will be shared when the time is right. You have taken away my job, but you cannot and will not silence my voice, he wrote in his letter. That sounds like there'll be more stories, interesting stories, about CBC in the near future. Nothing new to my subscribers, and if you're new, I urge you, please like, share, and subscribe. This is propaganda. CBC is propaganda. That's all they are. They're not real news. Fake news. That's what they run. That's what they do. And again, just like in this episode, I show you right from the beginning. Puff pieces to try to manipulate Canadians, to sway them into seeing not actually what's going on, but to kind of keep them, as I like to say, are you ready? Are you ready? Get the ball. Now, Blacklock's also dropped a bomb that the Privy Council polled on fears. Main themes of the Liberal Party's elbow-up re-election campaign were tested in confidential federal focus groups months before the U.S. announced tariffs, documents show. Pollsters hired by the Privy Council found many Canadians were unsettled by Donald Trump and feared mass layoffs from tariffs. And then once again, now that we know that the elbows up was being discussed way before any of the tariffs and Trump stuff came up, what was CBC running?
Just want to say, elbows up, folks.
Elbows up.
We're keeping our elbows up, bud.
In response to Donald Trump's threats on our economy and sovereignty, the Elbows Up movement is catching fire online, inspired by a Canadian comedy icon. That's Canada's Mike Myers on Saturday Night Live, making the distinctive gesture and mouthing that rallying cry, elbows up. If it looks familiar, he did it a week earlier. The message is catching on with everyday Canadians and elected politicians.
Elbows up.
It's elbows up time. We will never kiss the gangster's ring.
The term goes back to Mr. Hockey himself, Gordie Howe.
Gordie was the sweetest guy on the planet, but when Gordie did elbows up, it meant people got black eyes and people lost teeth.
Now, as Donald Trump tries to force Canada into a corner, Canadians seem to be taking an expat celebrity's lead to show they're ready for a fight.
Mike sent the message, and I've been hearing it all day. Elbows up, elbows up, elbows up.
So
Really?
the added benefit of all of this is for Canadians who either aren't hockey fans or maybe are too young, are learning all about Gordie Howe and his, he great hockey player, great scorer, but also, as you heard, loved to use his elbows. And if you don't know about Gordie Howe, look up the Gordie Howe hat trick.
So, Canada, you're being played. This entire elbows up was a setup in its entirety. And Myers was in on it. So not only do you have the politicians polling on what possibly to framework, and they figured the elbows up was a good one, they then got a actor, a full-blown liberal lunatic. Like Myers is a full-blown, the guy is a lunatic. I got rid of, I used to be a fan of his. I literally got rid of every movie that I had of his. Done, gone. They heated a building of mine for a short period of time. I didn't even get the BTUs out of them that they're worth. So Mike was involved in it. Carney and the Liberals were involved in it. Privy Council was involved in it. CBC was involved in it. CTV and Global were involved in it. The entire elbows up was already predetermined, set, and rolled out in literally the exact type of propaganda you would have seen happening in Germany. This is professional propaganda. It's all there. It's all dated. It's all time-stamped. I love being able to be the person to report on this stuff and put all the pieces together. Propaganda, I've been studying it for decades. I knew the second it came out something wasn't right. Previous episodes. I knew something, there had to have been more to it. And especially how fast they were pushing this out. And all of the media outlets, CRTC regulated, were on the bandwagon. Canada's been had. Once again, thanks to propaganda. Like I try to say, and I say over and over, propaganda is literally the strongest arm of a totalitarian, communistic, socialist, or fascist government. They use it against the people. Without propaganda, they could never get power. It is the first and last tool. It is the favored tool. Before anything else, before they could even have the power to change law, to use military, to use law, judicial systems, they would never ascertain any type of power if it wasn't for propaganda. Elbows up, Canada. Now, let's just dive into Pierre Poilievre at the Stampede. He did a few speeches. This one in particular, I'm going to play. Canada was duped. Every single thing that he states here is what Canada needed. And I'll just let him talk because literally he says it all.
How are you, Premier? Great to see Premier Danielle Smith, a champion for freedom. Wow. They love you, Danielle, and I know that you're a very hospitable person at Stampede time, even for Liberals. We have to be hospitable. And so let me start in a spirit of nonpartisanship as a Calgarian to welcome Prime Minister Mark Carney to his very first Stampede in this role. And he had, of course, to do the customary thing and flip some pancakes. Now, he thought he would be great at it because in his trade talks with Trump, he's had so much experience flip-flopping. But still, it didn't go as planned. One of the pancakes got broken in half and the other one splattered everywhere. And he owned up to it, but a careful review of a slow motion replay demonstrated exactly what the problem was. He couldn't figure out whether to put his elbows up or down. But it is great to be home here. I used to come here to Heritage Park when I was in school. They'd bring us here, our parents would dress us up like it was 1905. And we go into the little schoolhouse, I think it's still over there, and they even had the little strap. They didn't hit us very hard, but I got a little bit of a mark on my palm for talking too much during the class. And this is the place that taught me my values, the values of hard work, freedom, family, values that my wife Anna, who I'm very honored to have with me here, shares, the values with which we're raising our kids. I grew up in these neighborhoods, walked my dog, ran my dog in Fish Creek Park, delivered the Calgary Sun door to door as my very first job, played hockey in the local arenas. And these values that I've taken from this community and this province have taken me forward. And of course, these are the values of all Albertans. They're the values that Damien Couric has demonstrated in putting his country first. And I'm very excited. Yes, give him one more round of applause. Damien is a family man, a hardworking patriot,
I'm
a great
going to scroll ahead.
And the reality is, my friends, that Mark Carney and the Liberals are spending irresponsibly and threatening our present generation with high inflation and our future generations with more debt. In fact, it looks like this year's Liberal deficit might be even bigger than the one that Trudeau left behind. The Liberals have gone from the budget will balance itself to there's no budget at all. And this is really building on their ideology: tax, regulate, subsidize, repeat. Mr. Carney has the same approach as Trudeau on this as well. Liberals block things, and then they subsidize those same things. Think about it. They block pipelines. Then they buy pipelines. They pay local bureaucracies to block home building. Then they create a $25 billion bureaucracy to build homes. They ban independent media from the internet, and then they subsidize other media, supposedly because we have a crisis in news coverage. They pass laws that stop things, and then they dig into your pocket to subsidize those same things. As Ronald Reagan put it, if anything moves, a Liberal will tax it. If it keeps moving, a Liberal will regulate it. And when it stops moving, a Liberal will subsidize it. Now, the commonality and the consistency in all of this is the simple. By blocking you from doing something and then making you ask the government to help you do it, it makes you reliant on them. It puts them at the center of all power, in charge of your life. And that is their mission, that is their goal. Mark Carney wants a full government takeover of our economy. He wants more control over your life, so elites and insiders like him control and profit from everything.
That, my friends, is Socialism 101. Fact. Take it to the presses. Polyev nailed it.
We conservatives, by contrast, we believe in freedom. We want you to have the ability to control your own destiny and make your own course. We believe in freedom of enterprise, freedom of speech, thought, religion, expression, and more. We want government that minds its own business and leaves people to be free to decide for themselves. Let workers work, let builders build, let farmers farm, let investors invest, and let parents parent.
Hear, hear.
Now, these might seem like theoretical differences, but they are very tangible. Here's the core difference between an economy controlled by the government and one controlled by the free market. A government-controlled economy is a political economy. Businesses have to clamor to please politicians and bureaucrats. In a free market, which we favor, businesses clamor to impress customers. The idea is to put people in charge of their economic lives by letting them have free exchange of work for wages, product for payment, and investment for interest. We want Canada to be the freest country on earth, where everyone who works hard gets a fair shot at a good life. And that is what brings us here to this moment. That's what brings us to the moment and the job that Canadians have given us. In the short run, our job is to be a strong opposition. In the long run, a principled government in waiting. As Lincoln said, I stand with a man when he stands right, and I stand against him when he stands wrong. We will, for example, offer any help we can to get a fair deal for Canada with our American friends. However, we will fight back when the government is wrong. We will fight tooth and nail against the ban on gas-powered vehicles. You should be in the driver's seat and have the freedom to decide what you drive. We will continue to oppose the industrial carbon tax, C-69, C-48, the cap on our energy production, the plastics ban. We're going to unleash our energy and our production and make Alberta and Canada the richest place on planet Earth. We will fight against C-11, the censorship law, and the Online Harms Act, so that Canadians can decide what they see and say on the internet. We will not let the government open your mail without a warrant. That's not how it works in a free country.
Which, as I mentioned there, Harrison Faulkner did a interview on this is some of the legislation that the Liberals are passing. This is absolute scary. They can never just pass a bill in the simplicity that it should be. They are Liberals, especially the new Liberals. They like to bury rules that they are putting in or powers that they are giving to themselves into the framework of the bills. They've been doing this professionally for the last 10 years. And this is why you get conservatives voting against. And they do it on purpose. They'll say, well, they're voting against your dental care. No, they're voting against all of the little things that you are burying in these bills that they know, the conservatives know, go against every single grain of what it is to be Canadian. But the propaganda pushes out, oh, they're voting against dental care. They're against this. They're against that. Propaganda. It's all propaganda. Leave it to Polyev to throw it out there. Sorry, so sorry. Just the truth.
We will fight for an end to the catch and release bail laws, which have unleashed chaos on our streets. And we will stand unapologetically with licensed, law-abiding, trained and tested firearms owners, our hunters and our sport shooters. And we will put Canada first in everything that we do, and that includes immigration. Look, we're a welcoming country, but the latest news that the Liberals allowed 17,500 foreign criminals to enter our country by sponging their prior criminal records is just the latest example in the radical, liberal, failed experiment with open borders. And Mark Carney refuses to deport any of these individuals, nor has he changed any of the radical immigration targets that Justin Trudeau left behind. Our housing, our health care, our jobs are overwhelmed. Our young people are cast aside while low-paid, temporary foreign workers take their jobs. We must end the abuse in the temporary foreign worker program, the international student program, the refugee system, and we must restore an immigration system that puts our country and its people first. We reject the radical Century Initiative, which Liberals have endorsed, saying that they want to bring our population to 100 million people over this century. Look, we don't blame people for wanting to come here. Almost all of us trace our lineage back to immigrants, other than our First Peoples. But that immigration must be controlled. It must be in numbers that we can absorb. It must be the right people at the right pace that will allow us to succeed as Canadians and integrate and be one united country. And to put Canada first, we need to have a strong armed forces. Conservatives will continue to champion our soldiers, our sailors, and our airmen to do the job of securing our sovereignty, rebuilding our alliances, asserting our claims, and also preparing for danger. But our military is not just about more money. Yes, we need more money, but that money needs to get to the front lines, not to back office bureaucracy, not to procurement boondoggles, and not to pet projects of the government. In reality, our military must have a warrior culture and not a woke culture.
Again, on previous episodes, I exposed that, how Carney, they came out, and again, with the help of propaganda, they're going to give raises to everybody. Everybody's going to get raises. And then all of a sudden, quietly, they went, oh, no, we're not going to do that, actually. We're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to create a little bit more bureaucracy. And all of our warriors never got a raise. And doesn't look like they're going to get a raise. Yeah. Nothing new.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Now, fighting for these values is never easy. Change, as we've seen, is not easy. Nothing worth doing is easy. But building Alberta was not easy. You think it was easy for the frontier farmers and the prairie pioneers to break cold ground in order to settle this land? No, it wasn't easy either for the oilmen to pierce through the frost and stone to bring the black gold to the surface. It wasn't easy for the prairie mothers to feed hungry children during drought, depression, and war. It wasn't easy for us to run rail across Mustang and Mountain. It wasn't easy for our prairie boys to go off and fight for freedom against tyranny in the Great Wars. None of that was easy. Making Alberta was hard. Making Canada, the country we love, was even harder. But we don't back down and we don't run away when things get hard. We dust ourselves off, we get back in the saddle, and we gallop forward to the fight. So let's fight for our freedom, fight for our families, fight for Alberta, fight for Canada. I am ready for the fight. Are you ready to join me? Let's do it for the country we love. God bless Canada. Thank you very much, and happy Stampede.
It was a great speech. I'd like to say he's back, hopefully. Especially getting onto this immigration. This is a huge, like it's one of the major breaking points that the Liberals are doing, which again, previous episodes I expose. They're purposely trying to remove the conservatism within Canada by flooding areas with migrants. Even the way that the systems are splitting up these voting areas, like in Poilievre's own riding, purposefully. There is no such thing as coincidence when the coincidences never lean the other way. They're always leaning one way and one way alone with this new Liberal government. And by new, I mean the last 10 years, because Carney hasn't changed the party at all. If he was truly different, he would have dropped every single aspect of what Trudeau did to our nation in the first month of having power. He didn't. What has Carney actually done? Nothing. Zilch, nada. He is reaffirmed, solidified, and moving forward on every single aspect of what the Liberals have done over the last 10 years. There's no change. He's just like a steam engine making sure to force it through. Canada's doomed. This government has to fall. We need a change in government, and we need police and investigations brought in, and we need all of this corruption exposed. Especially now knowing the whole elbows up was an inside job. That's one good place to start. And let's start tracking phone calls and emails and texts and see who all within the propaganda arm are in first-hand talks with those in the government. Be a good start, let alone the SDTC and all the Green Slush Fund and the banking and all the rest of the corruption and lost billions. We need to find this. Heads need to roll. And in order for a country to really move forward, you got to charge the people on the top and make sure they do time. We're going to move on now to Ontario and Alberta. Today signed an agreement, and it's a memorandum of understanding, what they call an MOU. So this isn't solidified yet, but it's a great step forward. And I'm going to show you this part of the clip first because I thought it was absolutely hilarious.
Oh, that's a beauty. That is a beauty. Thank you. Oh, that's great. You know, I see a lot of Ford Nation people here, so I'm taking this copy off. Hold on. You're taking my belt off. How do you get this off? Okay, there you go. I'll put the Alberta one on. That's a beauty. Good job. Let me tell you a funny story yesterday, Ian. Okay, so we're sitting at the table, and I just got this belt buckle. See, it only has two little things in a big gut like mine, pop these things out. So as soon as they said Premier Ford come up, bang, my belt buckle fell off. And that was it. It was doing,
so he had a choice whether to put it back on or just whip the belt right off. Well, and he whipped the belt off, and I was saying to Scott, if his pants fall down during this
that would not be good. I don't have a body like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but pretty good. I had to wait for the first one. There we go. There we go. That's it. Crazy group. That's beautiful. All right. Oh, this is a beauty.
Schedule, so as possible, was record and.
On the pipelines front, I'm curious what your actual plan is there. There's not necessarily a whole lot of love for oil pipelines necessarily heading east. So what can we expect?
Propaganda. Listen carefully to the question.
All right.
Yeah, we're good. Emma Graney with the Globe and Mail. On the pipelines front,
Globe and Mail. Propaganda. Listen to the question.
I'm curious what your actual plan is there. There's not necessarily a whole lot of love for oil pipelines necessarily heading east. So what can we expect in terms of concrete, where it might start, where it might go?
Well,
see, this is well, I'll just let Danielle finish because she corrects this supposed journalist. It's not a journalist. This is a propaganda artist. And at least Daniel Smith puts her in her place.
First of all, I'd say we have done lots of polling on the attitude towards pipelines. And in every single province, it's a majority, and in some cases well above 70%. I don't think Ontario is any different. Ontario, I think, knows that with Line 5 right now, it goes through Michigan to feed Sarnia, and that is puts them in a precarious position. The governor of Michigan has been trying to shut that pipeline down for years. And so we have always felt that having a Made in Canada solution with the pipeline option going to not only Ontario and Quebec, it just makes sense from an energy security point of view. And the world changed in November. And I think Canadians understand that we've got to start acting like a country. We've got to start supporting each other. And I think that is the prevailing sentiment in the country. But I'll let Premier Ford speak for his own people.
Well, thank you, Premier Smith. Premier Smith was bang on. We have the governor of Michigan constantly threatening to close down the pipeline. Do you know the disaster that would create in Ontario? It would basically shut down Pearson International Airport, largest airport in the country. Prices would go through the roof. I'm tired of relying on the United States, and let's make no mistake about it. I love the U.S. I love the American people. But there's one person that's causing a problem right now, and that's President Trump. We want to move forward. We want to build the Amcan fortress. But the days of relying on the United States 100%, they're done. They're gone. We're going to start being reliant and self-reliant on each other. We have the strongest. We're an economic powerhouse in Canada. We're going to continue growing, free trade being one within all the provinces. That will add over $200 billion to our economy, anywhere up to 6% of our GDP. We have to start diversifying our trade right across the world. People would love great Alberta oil, that love products, critical minerals from Ontario. That's what we start doing, and stop being reliant on our neighbors to the south, because there's uncertainty right now and it's hurting our country.
Even Quebec polled at 72% in favor of pipelines. Propaganda. This is what they keep, and just like the Liberals know, because they study leftist loonies, instead of reading books like Marx and understanding the threat within those pages and seeing how these people study ways to manipulate society in order to create or force change upon them. They literally study these to use this type of, well, complete brainwashing in order to keep themselves in power. And one of them is, if you repeat the same thing over and over and over, people have the tendency to believe it. This is true. This is propaganda. This is what this reporter is trying to do. She will clip it, she will edit it, it'll be sound bites and video clips in order for her to print off her propaganda. And I can assume that it'll probably be along the lines of, even though pipelines are not, they're frowned upon across Canada, Alberta Premier blah, 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 is still pushing dirty oil instead of actually doing her job and reporting. The entire question she put out was nonsensical. It was idiotic. It was propaganda.
And the fact these are MOUs, I mean, sometimes MOUs don't get a whole lot of traction. What makes this one different?
Well, what makes a difference, we're doers. There's a lot of politicians that are talkers, and the federal government, not the present one, because we're
now, this is where you get to see the real liberal. This is why I want you guys. That's why I'm going to play a lot of this question presser. Listen to him talk, and then listen to Daniel Smith.
Hoping we're going to be able to work with the present federal government, but for far too long, for 10 years, under Prime Minister Trudeau, they were treated terribly. The West was treated terribly, Saskatchewan and Alberta. And as I said in our meeting, and you heard it, Premier Smith, we got to start showing respect. Ottawa has to start showing respect to the great folks in the West, especially Saskatchewan and Alberta.
Now, he has never said anything. I went back, I tried to find it. He's never said anything about the West and how they have been abused by the Liberal Party until the polls started plummeting and showing the Conservatives were going to take a sweep, possibly knocking the Liberals right out of party status. And even then, he didn't say anything about the West per se, although he started to actually finally come out of his closet, liberal closet, and start to say how bad Trudeau was. His entire time in office, he was bootlicking Trudeau. He was investing Ontario taxpayers' money into the same EV madness instead of actually standing up for the taxpayers and the auto workers going, whoa, 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 whoa. This is bad policy. This guy is a waste of skin.
Over to you.
Scott Strasser, Post Media. Question for Premier Smith. Prime Minister Carney was in Calgary over the weekend. Did you speak to him or any other members of the Liberal government?
I kept running into ministers. I feel like we're...
I'm going to fast forward here a little bit because I'm going to end up running out of time.
Good morning, Premier Smith, Premier Ford. My name is Jen Hodson from the Western Standard. I'm directing my question at you, Premier Smith, but maybe you both can weigh in. So Prime Minister Mark Carney has said that he's amicable to the one pipeline in BC. So is that enough?
I would say that it depends very much on where you think the world is going. There are a number of forecasting companies that don't do forecasting, they do backcasting, meaning they say, where do we want to be ideologically by 2050 and what would we have to do today to reduce production to get there? I would prefer to deal in the world of reality. And in the world of reality, we have 5 billion people on the planet who want the same standard of living as the industrialized countries. They are going to need energy from all sources to be able to get there. And so if you look at OECD, which does forecasting, they think by 2050 the world is going to need about 120 million barrels a day, up from about 104 today. So if it's a growing market, I think the world would benefit from having more supply from a reliable, friendly, safe neighbor like Canada, especially with the heavy oil product that we provide, because it gives a lot of options in developing asphalt, building materials, lubricants, petrochemicals, and so on. There's a lot of versatility in the product. So we are very much of the view that if we're going to see a growing share, Canada should have a growing share and Alberta should have a growing share. So if we were, if we'd had the Energy East, if we'd had Keystone XL, if we had Northern Gateway, we would be producing 2.5 million barrels a day, more than we are today. That would have been generating somewhere in the order of, I don't know, $60 billion a year in revenue for the country. And that would have, and as again, 40% of that revenue going to various governments. That would go a long way towards allowing us the dollars that we need to meet our NATO international target for spending, or any of the social programs that we keep that we value. And I think that this is maybe the new understanding that we need to have. If you want to provide the supports for your people, you have to generate the revenue so that you have the money there. The model we've been using for the last 10 years has been borrow, 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 print money, and see inflation. It doesn't work. How about we try a different approach? Let's make sure that every single part of our economy is ticking on all cylinders. Let's make sure that all of our wealth creators and job creators have the ability to do that. And then governments can talk about what their priorities are for the revenue that gets generated as a result. That's the world I think we're moving to. So I'm of the view that there's probably room for more than one pipeline, probably several.
Well, thank you for that, Premier Smith. I've been promoting building pipelines west, east, north, and south. As you just heard Premier Smith say, 2.5 million barrels is our...
Do you hear what he just said? No, he hasn't. He hasn't spoke anything of pipelines until literally the Liberal government was going to fall. And then what did he do? He literally stayed out of it, and believe it or not, I think played a large role on why Conservatives didn't win. Because he stayed silent. He wasn't doing what he's doing now. If he would have been saying this earlier, the Conservatives would have won the election. But it wasn't in his favor. He's a power monger. And he is a closet liberal. Now, listen to him talk and you'll totally see what I mean.
Is our potential. And that's just in Alberta. That's not talking about our great neighbor, Saskatchewan, and up in Newfoundland, Labrador, and a few other places. That's what we need to do. We need to be an economic powerhouse, an energy powerhouse around the world. And we need the $60 billion, as Premier Smith said, to build our infrastructure, healthcare. And rather than just, as you were saying, Premier Smith, rather than just continuously print money, that hasn't worked. We need to unleash the opportunities, no matter if it's the great oil here in Alberta, or the critical minerals or the energy that we have in Ontario. That's what we need to do. The door is open. We need to go through that door and tell the world Canada is open for business. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And just to follow up on that, so do you believe that Prime Minister Carney is actually going to play ball, or is he just talking the talk?
Well, there'll be a moment where the rubber hits the road. Like, you can only talk the talk for so long before you start putting some real action around it. That's why I've been saying I'd like to see by the fall. That's my target, is to try to get our projects on the project list by the fall. I don't know if you.
Well, let's give Prime Minister Carney opportunity, and there's going to be a time that we're fully in or we aren't. And I'll tell you one thing, Prime Minister Carney is no Justin Trudeau. He's a business mind. He's run massive multi-billion-dollar businesses, and he's bringing the business approach to the federal government that hasn't had that approach in the last 10 years. He wants to get things going. He comes from Alberta. He believes in prosperity, opportunity. He believes in cutting waste, because we've seen the government, federal government, grow by 40%. So I have all the confidence that he's going to listen to the premiers and straighten out the federal government once and for all and get rid of the red tape and regulations. And let's see what happens there. But I'm giving Prime Minister Carney the benefit of the doubt. So far, so good. And I wish him all the best with dealing with President Trump as well, because that's going to be a big area of that we can get rid of the uncertainty. But thank you, everyone. Again, Premier Smith, thank you for your hospitality. Thank you.
Bootlicker. He's only saying whatever he needs to say in order to keep in power, in order to keep political favor, in order to get free money. This guy is a waste of skin. When he first came in, I already disliked him just because I knew about a lot of the business practices that he had done. But then after really seeing how he steered his way through political wins, and then a lot of the manipulation and a lot of, from the Greenbelt scandals to a whole bunch of other things, which I'm still working on some files. This guy's a liberal. He's a liberal. It's disgusting. Oh, what do you want? It's Sparty here. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the episode. We're going to see what's happened, but with Parliament shut down, nothing's moving forward. Trump just announced he sent out some letters, 25% tariffs on a few countries. No word on Canada's trade yet. It's yet to be had. And we will just have to kind of see what happens. But I can guarantee you, he ain't pro-West. He's going to keep pushing carbon capture. He's going to keep pushing the insanity of the gas of life being bad somehow. Nothing's changed. It's the same Liberal Party. Anyways, you guys, once again, I hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. If you are, please punch that notification bell so you don't miss any future episodes. I want to thank some of the emails that I've been getting, especially, just double check here, the name, I believe it was Candace. Candace, thank you very much. You sent me a couple Instagrams there via email. I looked into it, and as I've been doing more and more research, there is what the main problem is they slipped in. The Alberta government has slipped in a £5,000 maximum for home slaughter businesses. Now, as I was researching what was going on, I was seeing that there's been a lot of illegal meat trading. A lot of it has to do with the immigrants that are coming in. Some of the halal processes they're doing, a lot of theft that's been going on, and literally just some grotesque. Some of the videos and stuff I've seen, some of these people, they're bringing their third world here and slipping under the radar, and people are going to get sick. So that's kind of what I was seeing. And then as I started following it more and more and more, yeah, they actually slipped in this 5,000 pound cap, which, if you know anything about farmers, that one herd of my pigs surpasses 5,000 pounds. That's not a problem. Let alone anybody who's dealing in cattle with 2.5 cattle. That's done. So this rule is not good. I will be doing a lot of investigative journalism on this. I'm going to dig down. I've already got a lot of the documentation I've been reading through. I hope to have it here in the next couple episodes. So thanks a million, Candace. And to all of you other subscribers out there for not only your great comments and conversations in and on these videos, but for the emails and stuff. And yeah, if you could support the channel, please donate. CanadianCitizenJournal@gmail.com, or you can buy our fabulous apparel. The link is in the description as well. Until next time, you guys, I'm Alias Tagay. You've been watching the Canadian Citizen Journal. Stay informed.